everybody, it's Ashley Wheat. No matter where you currently are in your professional journey, there is one tool that's always essential to have on hand, and that is a good resume. Whether you're looking for a new job or if you love the company that you're with and you're looking for advancement, or even if you're an entrepreneur doing your own thing and you want more investors, it's always important to have an impressive resume because that's often people's first impression of you as a professional. The design of resumes has changed a bit over the years, but for the most part, it has remained the same. As far as style goes, you want to make sure that you are creating something that's attractive and stands out from the crowd. So, what we used to have was just a plain resume, just typed out black and white on a white or ivory piece of paper, and that's perfectly fine. But these days, people do want to put a pop of color or so in there so it looks a little bit more attractive. Sometimes people will also put a picture of themselves on there, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But I will show you a quick example of a standard resume that you might see today. This resume is pretty basic, but it's still attractive and would pop out from a sea of black and white pieces of paper. So with this one, it was created in Microsoft Word. It was super easy to make, and it's just two auto shapes, the two blue boxes, and it was printed on some nice ivory paper, so it stands out a little bit from the white paper. You have your header up top in white, so it pops out. They will remember your name. And then you have your regular resume outline. For most resumes, I wouldn't do much more than that. You want to keep it pretty simple because the design of the resume is less important than the actual content of the resume. Now, as far as putting a picture on there, that is totally up to you. People debate over whether or not you should. And unfortunately, we do live in a world with bias. So that's why a lot of people say, well, you shouldn't put a picture on there because they might be biased because of it. So again, it's totally up to you if you want to do that or not. Personally, I like putting a picture on mine because the places that I'm sending my resume to, I know should not be biased towards me. So that's just me. Another important reason for keeping your design simple is because most resumes these days are submitted online. And usually when submitting a resume online, it will go through what's called an applicant tracking system, or ATS. And that system will scan your resume electronically using AI technology or some other technology, and it'll look for certain keywords to let the company know whether or not your resume is going to fit what they're looking for. So if you have too many design elements, pictures and shapes and everything, then that can throw off that technology, and so it won't be able to find your keywords, and it might automatically reject your resume. So you definitely don't want that to happen. So because of that, I suggest keeping a prettier version with all the nice designs in your picture if you want to, for handing people in person or directly emailing to people, and also a very simplified version for actually submitting through online systems. Now, as far as the actual writing of the resume goes, you want to keep a few points in mind. First, you want to be succinct. You want to keep your resume at no longer than 1 or 2 pages. Anything longer than that is probably not going to get read because people are getting sometimes hundreds or thousands of resumes for one single job, so they can't read through everything. Second, you want to sell yourself. Now is not the time for being modest. If you have done something spectacular in the past, say you worked in a team and you carried your team to victory, now is not the time to just say, well, it was a team effort. This is the time to toot your own horn and say exactly what you did to bring your team to excellence. You also want to be creative and use words that make you sound impressive. Say your only job so far has been working in fast food. Instead of just saying, I mop the floors every night, you could say something like, I carried out sanitation duties to ensure that our work environment stayed up to health and safety standards. That sounds a little bit better, right? And an important note, if you do choose to throw in some big words to make yourself sound impressive, please be sure that you are using those words correctly. I often consult a dictionary and the thesaurus when I'm writing stuff, so I make sure that I'm using words in the correct way, because there's nothing worse than trying to sound educated and important and using a word wrong, and it completely undermines what you try to do. So another tip is to be truthful. We all want to make people think that we are the best people in the world, but do so without embellishment. I used to work in HR, and there have been times when I have called to do a reference on someone's former employer, and they said they have no record of that person ever working there. So don't do that. Don't be that person, because that will quickly get your resume thrown in the trash and can even get you red flagged from ever being able to apply there again. The last tip is to make sure that you proofread. You want to make sure you check for spelling, style, and grammar. You have put a lot of work into this resume, so you want to make sure that it's perfect and polished and not have any random errors out there. So now we know how to design a resume and the style to write it in. So what do we actually put in the resume? So these are the main sections that a typical resume would have. First, you have a header. So that's going to be in big bold letters at the top of your page. That's going to include all of your contact information. First off, you're going to have your name, big and bold. That'll be the biggest thing on the page usually. You want to include your phone number, a mailing address, and an email address. And a lot of people debate these days about whether or not you should put your mailing address on there. And it is up to you. It's optional, because most people, most employers, they're not going to be writing you letters corresponding back and forth anymore. Most things are going through email or over the phone. So if you choose not to put your mailing address on there, that is fine. The next section is the objective, and that is also optional. And what the objective section is basically stating in one or two sentences what position you're seeking. And it's optional because most people these days will include a cover letter with your resume, and it'll already have that information in there. So it's up to you if you want to include that on the resume or not. The next section is education. So here you want to list all the institutions that you have gone to from high school through college and grad school. So if you've been to college and grad school, you don't necessarily have to list your high school on there, so it's optional. With this section, you want to include the name of the institution, also the location of the institution, what type of diploma or degree you had, and your major. And you can include your GPA, but I suggest only including your GPA if it's impressive. If you had like a 2.0, then I wouldn't necessarily put it on there, because all they really need to know is that you did graduate. And if you didn't graduate, don't let that intimidate you, because it still might not knock you out of the running for certain positions. And that is again why a cover letter is important, because that is where you have the opportunity to explain your qualifications past your resume. So again, stay tuned for that video soon. The next section is going to be your work history, and that's going to be the meat of the resume. So in this section, you want to list all relevant work experience that you've had in the past. For each organization that you worked with, you want to list the name of that organization, the location, how long you worked there from year to year, and also the main job duties that you've had at that organization. Limit your commentary to what's actually relevant to your objective. Say you are seeking a position as an accountant. You don't necessarily have to add that job you had in fast food 15 years ago. Now, if you only had a couple jobs, then you can still add that fast food job on there to show that you do have some work experience. But make sure that what you're saying about the job is relevant. So you can focus on how you had to complete numerous financial transactions with customers every day, or how you had to take account of the money in the register at the end of each night. So that is relevant to the accountant job that you're seeking. The next section is skills. And here you want to list any of your general skills, any special certifications you have, and any specialized software that you might be good at. The last section is honors and awards. So again, this is a section where you can toot your own horn. So you want to list anything like if you got an employee of the month or if you had top sales for your division, anything that's going to make you look good. And for this section, I want to leave off anything from any honors from religious or social organizations unless it's relevant to what you're seeking, because these type of things again can create bias against you sometimes. So these are the typical sections of a resume. So again, if you don't have much work experience right now, don't be intimidated. You can also list in your work experience any volunteer work that you've done. If you just graduated, you can list any big projects that you worked on while you were in school. Just make sure that you specify what type of work that it is. Now, this outline is not set in stone. Say your honors and awards or your skill set is more impressive than your educational achievements. Then you can move those sections up to the top so it's the first thing that people see. But just make sure that you don't deviate too much from the traditional resume outline, because again, that ATS system could end up kicking your resume out of their system. I hope these tips will help you write a stellar resume. And if you'd like to have a one-on-one consultation with me to help you write your resume, please leave a comment and let me know. So be sure to like and subscribe, and thank you so much for tuning in. And be sure to tune back in soon to learn how to write a cover letter. Y'all take care.